All right, so we want to welcome Nathasha Bravo. Nathasha has actually been with us or has visited our centers in the past and has given us awesome suggestions and strategies to work with our kids. And so today she's going to be talking about self-regulation. So I am just going to pass it on to Nathasha so she can start and just give us all this wonderful information you have for us.
Okay, awesome. So I've been doing pediatric occupational therapy now for about 25 years. And when Lang asked me to do this, and it was an hour, I'm just going to briefly introduce what occupational therapy is. And, how do I move? I can't see my screen. Hold on. There we go. And this is a pretty generic definition about what occupational therapy is. Okay, so it's a healthcare profession focusing. Why can't I see my screen?
We can see it.
I know, but like now all the pictures are over this. Hold on, it's on my end. Hold on, I'm doing something silly. I'm quite sure. Okay, sorry.
That's okay. I'll assist if you need. I'll read.
All right, so I'm gonna have to hide the images. So I guess just say something if you have a question, because I'm not able to see
Okay.
you guys now. But anyway, so it's a profession that focuses on helping people participate in daily living skills. So we work with people with physical, cognitive, and or psychosocial challenges in their daily life, whatever they participate in as their occupation. So we help people develop, recover, or maintain their abilities to perform these tasks as independently as possible. And in pediatric occupational therapy, we're helping kids do the same thing. A child's occupation is to socialize and develop relationships, to learn at school, to be able to play well, and to function in a variety of environments as they develop. So in schools, as you know, we work on things like handwriting and fine motor skills, focusing attention, self-care, and social participation. And some of those strategies we might utilize or suggest to teachers might include modifications to the task or the environment. Lang, can you help me so that I can see you guys at the same time while I'm saying this? Because I feel like
It's looking perfect from our end.
okay. Wait. No, I just want to be able to see you guys is what I mean. All right.
Don't worry. If somebody, I can see them. So if somebody raises their hand,
It's just
I'll
easier to feel like you're talking to somebody, you know?
I know, but we
Um,
can see you. Just imagine our smiles.
I got you. So in order to develop these skills, right, there's something that's underneath that, which is the level of arousal that you approach an activity or an environment. And what that means is self-regulation, the ability to get into a zone, to calibrate yourself, to initiate something or walk into an environment and be able to, maybe you initially walk in, you're a little nervous, your brain registers you're safe, so then you're able to calm and focus your attention fully on a task or a person or conversation or what it is. What's most important is that your level of energy, your arousal level is matching the task and the environment, okay? And in order to be relaxed and calibrated and calm, you need to know how to get there. A lot of us do this naturally, automatically. A lot of us, as we'll go through the slides, you'll see, and I want you to think about yourselves, not just your students, because we each have our own profile of how we get to a regulated state. So in order to do that, we need to know how to get there. For some of these kids that it's difficult for them to do. And then to make it more complex and add another layer, we need to remember how to utilize methods to get there when we're stressed out. So that's why it's super important to be able to model this for students, to practice coping skills that they can feel empowered to regain some control when they're starting to kind of lose their calibration, if you will. So, you know, walking into your classroom and be like, oh, I was in so much traffic, it was a nightmare. I just need a minute to take a couple of deep breaths. Maybe I'll turn off the lights for a minute. Let them know that you go through these same processes because we all do. And so what does sensory dysregulation look like? And these are the kids that maybe very easily start getting very fidgety. They speak fast. They might be very impulsive and can't stay more than 2 seconds focused on something. Their body is just craving movement. And they're not in a place where they're regulated, which looks like you are able to sit quietly, to focus on something, to have reciprocity and conversation, and to be able to follow instructions and learn. And that you have just right movements. So, your arousal level while you're reading a book quietly is going to be different than when you go out to the playground. So being able to modify those arousal levels. I really like this zones.
I use this in my classroom.
Yeah, and it's great because it's got, your traditional green light, red light, stop. Green light is a go, yellow is kind of in the middle. You've got the descriptive words, right? So the blue zone, sad, sick, tired, lonely. Can you guys all read this? It's legible? Okay, great. And then you also have the facial expression. So instead of only relying on the child to understand what that means, I really like to encourage narrating, especially for these particular kids, and being like, looks like you're getting to a little bit of a yellow zone. I see your body moving a lot. So you're narrating what you see and where they're going, and they're able to see where they're going with this kind of a visual. And then you can present some of the strategies that you would use for a class or that you would suggest for this child. And again, it's just one more way of giving them a little bit more control over where they're going and how they can kind of play with those levels. By the time you hit a red zone, none of these strategies are going to right away like heal it. So what you want to start developing is an eye for how you use some of these strategies and how your sensory, your regulation system is feeling, so that when you get to the yellow zone, when you're leaving the green zone, maybe it is time for a little break. Maybe it's time for a brain break or a movement break or quiet time, whatever it is, but just trying to get these kids to understand themselves a little bit better. This is something I worked on with a little boy that I work with named Mateo, and he came in for OT and would literally go from right here, this green zone, this yellow zone was like almost not there. And he would just go straight to red, which consisted of kicking and hitting and, foul language and throwing himself to the floor, and you can imagine that this probably wasn't, it was whatever made him hop from here and quickly go to yellow to red. It was probably accruing through the day. So, he's had to sit quietly. A friend called him a bad name. So things kind of add up before you fly off the handle into that red, but it's kind of getting to know what each individual child looks like in their yellow zone and helping them, hey, how can we get back into the green? And then on the flip side, you've got a yellow zone here, which is, I'm starting to lose steam. I'm starting to go into this. This is him. He wrote the Z's, so he would fall asleep. And how do we move from here back into the green? And if you think about it, I'm here in the, can you see my
Yeah, your mouse.
Yeah, that's,
Yeah.
So if I'm down here in Z and I wake up and I'm in here and someone's trying to explain to me directions to something or whatever, until I get my caffeine, which is a nervous system upper, right? I'm going to get in my green zone. I can have my day. I'm doing well. I might have to go for a walk at some point if I'm catching myself not paying attention anymore, or, needing to stretch. A lot of times we lock out our joints and we stretch, shake our head, and it buys a few more minutes of attention, if you will. Maybe it's Friday. I'm up here, rough week. I'm going to have a cocktail so I can come back down, maybe over here, we utilize caffeine and alcohol. Some people, adults, obviously smoke cigarettes. There's ways that we utilize strategies to get ourselves in this green zone so that we can be in a calm, regulated state. So again, being able to calibrate your nervous system to chill, to find your zone. And it's really important to think about, it's the zone that fits the task and the environment, because as those change, your zone is going to change. So for example, at the movies, you need to have a quiet body, but an alert mental state if you're going to follow the movie. And then if you're distracted, do you have enough juice in you to like bring you back? Or you might fall asleep in the movies because it's taking you into that blue zone. You're at a family barbecue, your body's active, your mind is active, you're alert, you're able to follow a conversation. you have that energy that you're harnessing, so that I'm talking to you and I'm filtering out these competing sounds because I'm very, focused on what you're saying and dampening whatever else is going on around me, which takes a level of energy to be able to do that. And then just to recap, the zone for a playground is different than what would be at circle time or reading independently or in PE. So for example, if you're at recess, this is kind of a free for all. The unpredictability is welcome. You can be independent in doing what you kind of choose to do. If you're in PE, your body has to be very well alert. So does your mind, but you have to be able to pull yourself back to be able to learn a skill and focus in on something that's not working so that it will work. So there's so many kind of nuts and bolts to it, but this is the general idea. Okay, so self-regulation for primary school students, we want to help them understand their zones. That's critical. And I wish more people would spend more time doing that, to help them learn how to be aware of transitioning between zones when that's happening, like what I was saying earlier, that you could narrate. And then they can master their emotions to come back to an appropriate zone for the task and the environment. So you want to do zone check-ins with your students, maybe when you get them, check in on each other's zones, ask a child to check in on someone else's zone. How can you tell he's in the green zone? How can you tell he's in the yellow zone? And talk them through your own zones. Like the example I gave you, if you spilled coffee on yourself, you're kind of upset, you need to decompress a little bit. What kind of strategies can you suggest for me? And harness, bring in their energy so that you all can help each other do this and normalize it. Because a lot of times it's not considered a normal thing. Someone's misbehaving, someone's acting out, but it's not necessarily on purpose. They're needing this input to stay organized, or maybe they're just no longer organized and they're doing what they can to not get out of their seat. So how do we change zones of arousal? Okay, we rely on our 7 sensory systems. So our brain is just in this dark little vault of our skull. It has no interaction with the outside world, and it does absolutely nothing but take in information from our senses, process that, compare and integrate that information with previous experiences, and then give an output. So there's an output that's done. For example, I'm going to go kick a ball. I see the ball rolling to me. I see the terrain I'm on, how I might balance my body to do that. And then I can kick the ball successfully if those senses are coming in with precision, and I'm understanding and processing them correctly. Now, those same senses can be utilized to organize your nervous system, and we're going to go over each one of them and talk about how we use it for learning, as well as how we use them to organize and self-regulate.
This is great, Natasha. Thank you.
Oh, good. I hope it's useful.
Yeah, no, so far it's great. And
It is so timely for me right now. I'm in tears. I'm sorry.
It's so what?
Thank you.
timely for her. She's so happy to be
Oh,
learning.
good. Good,
You
great.
made her cry, but don't get.
Why did I make you cry? Hold on. What?
She's so
I'm
happy.
just a big crybaby. I'm sorry, but I think about my
Yay.
grandson and I think, oh my God, these are all of the things that we are working through right now. So
Aw.
Oh
I'm
my God.
sorry.
Okay, so we could talk about that too after. Yes, for sure.
Okay.
Yeah, we're gonna have
I'm
time
so
to talk
glad.
at the end. That's awesome. Yep.
Thank you.
Beautiful. That makes me happy that this is helpful. I just included this slide so we can just all agree that I am very much simplifying what's happening in the brain. But as you can see, you have arousal regulation at the bottom, and then the orange and the red are your senses, right? So it comes in through here, and then the brain does all these stuff with attention and modulation and feeding, nutrition, and postural, ocular discrimination, till we get to the top, talking about social participation, learning and school success, regulating interactions, and self-confidence and self-esteem, which is like, at the top we have joy of life. I mean, this is what we hope for. So one of the most important things is, are we registering these senses appropriately? I'm sure all of you to some degree have heard of kids that have a hypersensitive touch system, can't stand tags, can't stand certain socks, can't stand to be touched a certain way, or every sound, the toilet flushing is like overwhelming. or the child who, you know, somebody walks by them and it's unpredictable, but for them it's an assault. It's almost like they hit me. So these misinterpretations happen. But what we're trying to work on is getting each of those systems kind of in sync so that we can perceive our environment accurately. So all in all, we have unique profiles that help each of us self-regulate, and we have to rely on specific types of intensities and input to become regulated. What appeals to you may not appeal or work for another. And I included this slide because I love that head thing. I could do that all day. And I think, and I tried that one day with a friend of mine. I didn't ask her, she was sitting next to me and she was driving. And I was like, look, isn't this amazing? And she almost backhanded me. It was the most noxious input for her. And I was just like, wow. But it was the perfect example of how, you know, what we think might calm us down or help in the moment is not necessarily what works for everyone. We calibrate our own nervous system to a degree, and we do this consciously and unconsciously in our own daily lives. Understanding ourselves can help us understand our students better. And this is my buddy Kai, who helped me put together this PowerPoint. And when COVID started and he was homeschooled, and he has some, you know, he's older now, he's 13. And so, you know, he talks about how he gets stressed and things like that. But one of the things he discovered is he comes home from school and sits on that swing that's hanging from a tree for 45 minutes to an hour. Sometimes if he gets up early enough, he goes out in the morning, he puts on his headphones, listens to Metallica, which has a very like strong beat, right? And he, now that he's old enough, he's able to talk about how I need to do this at the end of my day because it helps me not think of anything. I do this before I go to my guitar lesson. It's just something that he's built in his repertoire, and no one taught him that. No one said, you know, you need to swing or you need to try this. He's like, he just learned it. So I took a picture of him the other night because I was like, this is the exact thing we're talking about, you know? So we're going to talk about our vestibular system. So we have two senses that we don't typically talk about, which is the vestibular sense and the proprioceptive sense. So your vestibular system is your balance system. It's housed behind your ears. Those bones behind your ears are the strongest in your body because they house your internal balance. And without that, you don't have a sense of anything else. So if I don't know that gravity, I am here, I am in the middle, gravity is pulling me down, this is up, this is down, I can be asleep and I know how to get up without figuring out which way is up. Everything else works off of that. Your eyes work off this. It's kind of like that, the stick with the plates on it. So if your stick is not balanced, the plates are going to fall. So your eyes are working off of a solid, hopefully vestibular system. Your ears are working off a solid vestibular system. Okay. And this is what a lot of our kids are running after. They're the ones that are hanging upside down. They can't get enough of jumping off on and off the sofa. They're spinning. So just pay attention to this kind of input that they're getting. And here there's a list of ways that adults and kids engage in vestibular. So, you know, the swinging and the jumping, the spinning. Hammock is great because it could provide the slow rocking, but it also provides, we'll talk about it afterwards, some deep pressure input when it's surrounding you, and that can be very calming. Riding a bike or a scooter, and rocking chairs. Look how we use rocking and smooth rhythmic movement to calm a baby, right? You also, there's plenty of studies done as well with the elderly that that become agitated in homes, and they've placed rocking chairs in all over different areas, and they've seen that they've been able to reduce the amount of medication they need to be on sometimes because they're able to self-soothe and utilize that, you know, this sensory system that we have that we can rely upon to help us get organized. So does anyone have questions about that one? Okay.
No,
So
it's
the
great.
next system is the proprioceptive system. And this system is housed inside of our joints. Whenever we squeeze something, press something, twist something, move something, those, our joints fire, and it tells us where our body is. It gives you a map. So if I have my eyes closed, I know my arm is up, I know it's out straight to the side, I know it's down, I can hold two fingers up without looking. I'm well aware of where my body parts are in relation to each other, as well as my environment, right? Things like, well, these are the activities that can help with getting organized. And this is a really powerful system. If when in doubt, when you don't know what you need for calming, proprioception is definitely one that's going to help. So you're thinking about the tight squeezes, pushing a lot of weight bearing activities. Do you want me to go through each one of these, or you guys have any questions on them?
I think that so many students are looking for proprioceptive input. I see this so often. These are the kids that get in trouble for pushing someone, that are always moving their feet. And this is why I bought for EEO those bands to go on the desks, and different types of manipulatives. But it seems like more and more and more, this new generation has so many kids with proprioceptive input needs.
Yeah.
So I mean,
And
we
just-
don't have all these, but even things like wall push-ups I do all the time as a brain break.
I have
And
that
like-
on a slide too.
So-
Yeah, everything that's based on pulling, pushing, squeezing. So I just talked about the baby being rocked. What else do we do? Babies are swaddled. They're held together. You give them firm pats on the back. We're not doing some soft touch. We're doing some deep pressure. When you get a massage, it's relaxing. It's organizing. So something as simple as getting behind your student and pressure down into their shoulders, where they have to give the pressure up to not fall down, can be helpful. Helping them recognize when they need to go do, here on this slide, we have the wall push-ups down here, and wheelbarrow walking. Anytime that they need something that is deep pressure, you see this kind of like, that's what they're needing. They might need something to squeeze, a heavy blanket. Now, I mean, I think on the market now for adults, they actually have weighted blankets for helping you fall asleep faster, for helping you be less stressed. And that's based on proprioceptive input. A lot of the little ones that I see, they like to nap squished up against a wall and have a blanket on top of them. They want their boundaries felt. And something interesting.
I'm sorry, I've also seen the vests as well, those weighted vests that.
Yes, the
even
weighted
while
vests are
they're
great.
Playing.
The weighted vests are great as long as you keep them on for about maybe tops of 15 minutes, and then let the system recalibrate itself before you do it again. Because what happens apparently is that we become kind of accustomed to it, and it loses its to give that kind of input, if that makes any sense. So it's not a consistent hold. These are all pretty much activities that you do the movement, you do the activity for a little bit, and then you kind of let it go and let it sink in. But that is the whole idea behind the weighted vest. And also there's weighted ones, and then there's like the pressure vests also. But what I was going to give the example of is, if I were to give you a backpack right now, and then you had to throw that thing on and it was full, and you had to go into an elevator and navigate a busy environment, you're likely going to bump into people, and you're going to have to use your vision to kind of see if you're doing it okay, because it's not part of your body map. This is something new that you're adjusting to. So imagine these kids that live kind of in that zone. If they don't have that accurate body map, like when their eyes are closed, for example, which I think I brought it up in here. Simon Says body position, playing Simon Says with body positions with like a blindfold or with their eyes closed, you're going to be able to see the kids that are having a hard time. When a police officer pulls somebody over for a DUI, close your eyes and touch your nose. You're trying to see if that lower brainstem that's responsible for proprioceptive awareness is working, or if this person's not going to be able to function doing that. Ankle weights in a backpack. I love putting books, having the kid be the one to carry, copy papers, push furniture. This up here is a weighted sock, and there's those long white socks, and you can stuff it with beans or rice or something to give a little bit of weight. And then maybe they get it from, their sensory basket or something, wear it around their neck. Over here. Okay, so these are also the kids that when they're handwriting, you're seeing that they're pushing so hard they rip their paper or break the pencil tips, because they're trying to get feedback into their joints. So they're pushing even harder. So things you could, things that you could do to help prepare them a little bit better would be a lot of the pushing, pulling, tearing things, maybe a massage into the hands also and into the fingers before they get started. They have a hard time refining power and don't know how to change the force. So when sometimes you'll see these kids who are very coordinated, but they're going to throw a ball to you from maybe like 6 feet away, and they're going to use the same pressure to throw that ball to you when they're 2 feet away. And it's not because they don't know that the distance is different. It's just they're having a hard time automatically lightening up what their muscles need to do. So they might see, they're bumping into somebody really hard. They might be seeking it out on purpose because it feels good, but they also may not know that, oh, that's where this, this ledge is compared to my body, and not be able to be as accurate as other kids are with that. So the visual system. So we're more familiar with these senses now, right? We utilize activities to self-regulate, and can offer activities to self-regulate that are simple as, turning down the lights, or offering kids a pair of sunglasses if they're getting overwhelmed in the classroom. And you have to remember that some of these tools, not only do they work on your senses, but whenever you offer somebody an option, an opportunity to get control over something that they want, then psychologically it's something that's well received, and it buys you a little bit more time for that child to develop the confidence of like, oh, okay, I can use this to help me with this, right? So the file cubicle, putting the manila folders taped together so that they have an area that they're not getting visually distracted. Classroom lights and working with natural light, maybe for some activities, or adding more light for some kids when they start kind of going into that blue zone where they tire out. Visual schedules are great. And it's also an opportunity to help kids be more independent, especially the ones that are like, how many more things do we need to do before we go to recess? Or and they're asking the same questions where they can kind of check themselves where they need to be and what they're doing. And then, those lights are kind of, some people would think, oh, but you're going to encourage them to do stim themselves. But really what you're doing is helping them tune out what's going on around them, and they can just focus on what they're doing right in front of them. Like when I showed you Kai's picture on the swing, he's like, I'm not thinking about anything. I'm decompressing and I'm just trying to pull myself together. And a lot of kids that are very visually distractible, somebody will walk by the window on the other side of the room, but that's going to pull their attention. And then they have to be able to come back over here. Kids with auditory, for example, the same thing. They're going to hear the AC go on and they're going to have to tune into that and then come back, right? These visual timers are great. I don't know if there are other options for that, but now you're taking something that is a very abstract concept, like start getting yourself ready because we're going to do something else, and you're putting into a visual chunk of time, something bigger or something smaller. So that's really helpful also. And then of course, if there's moments where, okay, we need to kind of completely decompress, maybe they have those heavy iPads, because sometimes that pressure onto the eyes, even teaching them to rub their hands together and put that warmth on their eyes can help, refresh and refuel a little bit. Okay, so auditory, let me move this. We all use this to self-regulate some way or another. We choose the music we want to hear, whether we need something more uplifting to go work out or something more soothing. I particularly like the drumming, something that's rhythmic, that's deep, that's repetitive, that's gentle and slow to kind of bring things down. Some people like to use white noise. And now, from what I understand, there's like brown noise and pink noise and different levels of like what you would hear with the TV a long time ago, where it just goes and it kind of drowns out all the other sounds. Noise canceling headphones. Sometimes I like those, not just for the auditory, but I'll put them on a child and have them wear like a headband with it, because that pressure into the head can be very calming too. A lot of it depends on the child themselves. You kind of read what their body language is telling you. A guided 5-minute meditation on YouTube, sometimes progressive relaxation through their body, utilizing positive affirmations and teaching them to self-talk. So some kids just naturally, you see them and they talk themselves through a task and through an activity, and you hear them talk it. And I would bring it to their attention and I would encourage them to do it, because obviously they're the ones that are benefiting from the self-talk and auditory input that's kind of soothing and organizing for them. So it's actually, you can suggest that, to other children's as well. Let's see. And then concise instructions, auditory, especially if they're not real great auditorily and they kind of tune things out, you're going to want to use a couple of senses together, right? So you're going to do this first, this next, this last. You're going to ask them to repeat that to you, because now you've given them an auditory direction, but you're asking them now to depend on that auditory direction and give it back to you, or give it back to the class, or, choose one person to give the first, and then another person for the next, and then another person for the last instruction. And utilizing sound that way, or auditory instructions. Okay, the tactile system. Children and adults might utilize tactile input to self-regulate by playing with fidget toys. So this, I actually bought for one of my kids today and it came in, but I've been finding myself all day using it, and it's metal and it's tight, and it kind of just feels good, and it's fun to do this. And it might stop me, for example, from biting on my cuticles to stay focused, or fidgeting with anything else, or touching somebody else maybe that I'm not supposed to. So stress ball, fidget balls, massage, weighted blanket or lap pad, anything that's a large surface area. So touch that is firm and a large surface is calming. Something that's going to be light and ticklish. It might be pleasurable, but it's a very alerting touch. It goes through a different sensory, it goes through a different path in the touch system, which is for protection, right? So back in the day, and having a spider crawl up your arm, that's going to wake you up. So tickling, even though you find it, the child finds it enjoyable, they're laughing, it is a very alerting touch. So anything that is firm and that is large surface area is going to be more calming. We take warm baths or showers to help kind of decompress in the day also. The opportunity to use a sensory bin or a sensory table with different textures, and you can use that, like the shaving cream to make letters, or maybe an opportunity that they've had a long period of something and they have to listen to a story. Maybe they could be something with their hands, just some ideas. Those texture balloons here at the top are great. They're just, the kids make them themselves and they put flour in them, and it's just such a nice texture. You can squeeze and manipulate that. And again, it can help them keep hands to themselves for longer when they're doing things like reading and things like that. So the gustatory system, we utilize this all the time when we're stressed out and we want to eat for comfort, or like something delicious that just, you feel like that juicy neurochemistry, like flushing out all the stress hormones so that you can relax. But we can use it again as an upper or a downer. Things like hot chocolate, warm drinks are going to be soothing. And then things like gum, I would love to see, consider, here we have a test. This is, our gum chewing time, giving 2 huge pieces of gum, because it's all about getting that chewing in. And remember that the cranial nerves are all here that innervate the eyes, the ears, attention, focus in the face. And it's a special treat, right? So it's something that's going to help them regulate and stay organized. But you want to be choosy about, for example, the flavors. Something like bubble gum is very soothing. It's sugary. It's going to probably provoke in some of those kids that are very low tone, a little bit of drooling. Something that is like cinnamon or something that's spicy is very alerting. It is going to wake you up. Think about when you bite into a lemon. So maybe something like a treat that's very heavy on the lemonade, where it's tart, all the muscles are activated. Crunchy foods are alerting. Soda water. So I worked with a girl who was 14 on the autism spectrum, and she told me she would go straight from school to Starbucks to get the soda water, because that for her, I was like, oh, that's a great idea. It's very alerting, and And she goes, no, she goes, it would help me focus on my mouth and I could tune everything else out around me. So that's something to consider too, if you want to try with your kids. Maybe if they need to wake up, the bubble water, I've seen it work that way. But in this particular situation, she needed to tune everything out. She's had an overwhelming day, like things have added up. And that was her way of focusing in internally and blocking out and buying herself some time before she had to engage with somebody or do something else. So again, the spicy sour is alerting something like a thin straw for yogurt. It is actually providing you with that squeeze, what we talked about with the joints, with proprioception, and it can help calm. So think of a baby, right? Suck, swallow, and breathe. And that's what calms them also. We talked about sweets. Okay, down here we have a picture of the Chewy tube. And there's also Chewy necklaces. And that's one way of appropriately giving a child something that kind of looks like jewelry. They can bite on it, especially if they're biting on their shirts or on their buttons. Decaf coffee grounds. I don't know any teachers that have tried this, but I have tried it. As long as it's decaffeinated and literally 2 to 3 coffee grounds, it helps with alerting and again, activating all those muscles. And some of the kids that might be droolers, especially when they're doing motor work, it might help them be more, if they can articulate and strengthen those muscles and those lips, then you're going to see less of the drooling. So then, does anyone have questions on that one?
No,
Okay. So olfactory system, and I love this idea for classrooms. We use smell to self-regulate all the time, right? So perfumes and scents and foods and herbs, scented lotions. We've got the activating scents, right? Which are cinnamon, spearmint, black pepper, lavender, lemon, and eucalyptus. And then your calming scents, which would include vanilla, orange, lavender as well. In some cases, you just have to try it out. Chamomile and rose. And what I've done is, this is really pretty in these containers, but I have Ziplocs and I soak some cotton balls, I put them in there and I'll put a blue stick, I'll label it what it is, but put a blue sticker or put a red sticker. So your blue sticker is going to be calming and the child can go take a couple of deep breaths. Or if you both decide and maybe you've narrated how he's feeling, he might need to up his arousal level, right? And you can let him, get one of the more alerting scents. So I think someone had their hand up. Hold on, let me see how I do this, but I don't know how.
I think Ms. Roberts has her hand up.
And let me see. Do you want to go ahead and ask me? No?
you unmute yourself. There she is.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I'm listening.
Hi, Miss Roberts.
Hi.
I
I'm
don't know why I
listening
can't
to
see you.
the children fidgeting
Yes.
during instructional time, and it appears that they are not focused or paying attention to me. Are you saying this is a soothing mechanism for them and they are not really distracted? But is that so?
Let me just see if I understand. So you have a student who is fidgeting, is
Yeah.
using something.
I have students who fidget. Yeah.
Okay.
Who
That's
fidget during instructional time.
right. So there can be a couple of things. And this is why with this presentation, I want you kind of to maybe think about what would be the extremes of what's okay and what's allowed. But if that child wasn't fidgeting, maybe they would be touching somebody or something they're not supposed to. Maybe,
Okay.
on the other flip side of that, I've seen the kids where I think they're not paying attention because they're looking away, but they're listening to everything and they're looking away because vision and auditory is too much to handle. So
it's okay.
I
just gotta watch it.
I think it's okay. I think it's like I said, if we think about ourselves, we utilize things all the time to do that. And we're allowed to because we're adults. If I want to get up and get a Diet Coke because I can't focus anymore, I can do that. So when we think of that with ourselves and then we think of our students and we kind of see some clues in their behaviors, then maybe you see like, oh, if he has an option to fidget, I have him with me a little more time than I would if he didn't and he was just starting to,
Okay.
move around and
All
touch around. It is
Uh-huh.
normalizing something that I think in traditional learning, we've been always taught to sit, look, and listen.
Mhm, mhm.
And it's really hard. And now
Yeah.
in this day and age, play is not what we were doing when we grew up, which was here's a stick and here's a ball, go outside and play. Now it's
Mhm,
like everything is, it's on an iPad, it's in your
mhm,
face.
mhm.
You don't have to think, you don't have to move. So if we start peppering in some of these tools, if you will, then you might get more bang for your buck when you're teaching.
Yes, yes,
In the
yes,
beginning, it might be a distraction. I'm not saying
yes.
everybody, okay?
Mhm,
But once they start seeing that it makes a difference and you reinforce that
uh-huh.
by again narrating like, wow, I noticed that you were able to listen to the whole story. I saw
Right, right.
you were using it correctly, and that's awesome, you know?
Yes,
So I'm
yes.
kind of a fan of it. But I do
Okay.
realize that sometimes in the beginning it can be a distraction
Mhm,
before it becomes part of their
mhm.
repertoire of using it for learning. So those would be the senses. Now,
Thank you.
oh, you're welcome. Breathing is a major regulator. We use it all the time. I know that it works, but I'm the first one to be like, I don't have time for that. You know what I mean? So if we can remember to utilize it for ourselves and then also incorporate it with our students, it's so impactful and exciting when you see it actually shift their nervous system and then they know and realize it and want to use it. So we'll just go over these really easy ones. And the first one is bunny breaths, which is the 3 quick breaths in and a long one out. So they're to go. And so the whole idea is like they look like a bunny when they do it. 3 in, quick, 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 and then 1 long one out. And then the bee breath, which they're smelling a flower and and how long can they do it for? And that's a good one because it puts a lot of compression on the diaphragm and in the lungs, and they Z it out, and it gives them a good exhalation. Box breathing is a really good one that I've heard about a lot, and I've found that a 4 count is what is easiest for them to do. So you go in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. So it goes. And it's hard to get, but now you know why it's box breathing, but it's probably one of the more powerful ones, I think. Blowing balloons as an activity is great. And then I love this last one of blowing cotton across the floor. The kids will get on all 4s or on their elbows, and they have to blow along a line. And then maybe from there, they go into their circle and sit down. So you can use a straw with it or not use a straw with it. It's also great because what are you getting ready for? If the kids are at their desk, their eyeballs are looking down at what they're writing, then they diverge to look up to the board, come back down. And when you're blowing and doing those things, you're encouraging the eyes to come together. And then as the cotton ball rolls away, they have to expand their vision. Then they get up to it, blow again. So, and I know, I'm sure there's a bazillion ways that you can modify all of these, but I will say the box breathing for me has been, it's probably the hardest one to teach them, but the most powerful one that I've seen. Oh, and you have Kathy? I think you're muted.
Yeah, I just unmuted. Hi.
Hi.
I use the breathing with my kids and they really enjoy it. One of the things we do, I have them put their hands flat on their knees and pretend to blow up a bubble or a balloon, their pretend balloon. And they have to raise their hands and they have to do it to a slow count so that they get it as big as possible. And then I just say pop. And when I say pop, they really love that.
Yeah,
And then
so
their hands come down. Yeah, they blow it as big as they want, and then they go pop, and then the hands come down.
See, that's an
They
awesome
enjoy
one.
it.
And they enjoy it.
Yeah, they really enjoy that. They look forward to it. Some of them want to see how, they say, oh, I'm going to look at you. And I know when you're going to say pop, they're trying to anticipate when I say pop. And
Uh-huh.
so that, but I use a lot of different breathing techniques because I'm a musician and a singer. So I know a lot about
Breath.
control and that kind of thing. And so I really enjoy sharing that with my students.
And that's awesome. And I think when you introduce that kind of thing, maybe it's unpredictable and it's not something you had planned, but if you're narrating like, hey, so-and-so cannot keep his legs still, and you're just, I can tell you're just trying to get out of your seat. Let's just take a brain break. Let's do a couple of breaths together.
Yeah.
Do that. You kind of stop that moment where things are kind of getting, maybe they're getting tired or whatever, or anxious, and you switch it up to something else. You do something that's decompressing, and then you try to come back to your activity. And it's really interesting to watch what works for who. So yeah, breath work is great for that. Thank you. And then here we just have task and environment modifications. Let me move this away again. Sorry. Okay, so right now, up to now, we've been talking about internal things that we can do, right? So how we can impact the brain through the senses coming in. There's also things you can do, which you all are very familiar with, I'm sure, that modify the task and or the environment so that you can create more opportunities for success, right? Some of the things are not possible. If you're in a classroom with 20 kids, you can't just say this child needs to be alone in his own classroom. Like that's not feasible. So within what works, can you do things to the environment or the task that would make things easier? So simply, breaking down tasks into chunks. We talked about first, next, last. A visual schedule that can be adapted, and even a visual schedule that for some kids they might have on their desk right there so they can see it. Utilizing self-talk, we talked a little bit about, and predictions. So really thinking about how you present things. When they're transitioning, asking them, like, what do we need to do right now to get ready for lunch? Instead of the proverbial, everybody put your books away, get your desks cleared, go get your lunch boxes and go to the line. What if you threw out there like, okay, we're getting ready for lunch. Who's going to tell me what we can do next? Or let me just see you quietly do what you need to do. And that'll help you also find which kids are like having to rely on looking at everybody else to figure out where they need to be. And those that just automatically stop a minute, think, and kind of get themselves organized. We're finishing math soon. What do we need to do next? How do we get ready for such and such? Utilizing predictions to compare and contrast things and spot differences, and basically make them more aware of their surroundings, how their surroundings impact them, and how they can impact their surroundings so that they can feel more successful. What are you okay with in your classroom? So we kind of talked about this, right? Is it okay for the child to stand up and listen to the lesson from the back of the room? I've seen some classrooms that have desks that they modify so that they're standing and they're doing the work from the back of the rooms. Teachers taped off a line. If you need to get up and you need to go to the back of the room to listen, you could do that. Now, if they're back there, they are listening, they are standing, they might be, pacing or moving around a little bit. But like I said, once the novelty wears off, it's something that they begin to utilize when they need it. Maybe they become independent enough to where they go to the X on the floor and do the wall push-ups like they do in Lang's classroom. You kind of want to figure out what you can be okay with. Can someone sit on the floor and work with a clipboard if they're lying on their belly, loading into their arms or against a wall? What can you do with the environment to get more bang for your buck? We talked about taping off an area in circle time that helps a child, for example, who does not know how to stay still or in his zone. Maybe he needs that visual cue. And maybe instead of just giving it to him, offer the tape to somebody else also so that they can choose if they want to have their circles as well. Because then you're not isolating and pinpointing a child for doing something bad necessarily if he can't control it. So what modification can you do that you would be okay with? If your child is getting frustrated, we talked about narrating, helping him or her see that they're in the yellow zone. Can we change something? Can we get something from the fidget box? Do they need something to chew on? We talked about the wall push-ups again, for example. And And then just some simple tips, like the concept of time blindness. So when we tell a child, we've got 10 minutes before everyone's got to get cleaned up and everybody's got to get ready to line up at the door. Or we have 5 more minutes of recess, which means nothing, if you don't have that internal sense of time. So it's very useful for kids to be able to see there's a big chunk of red on that clock or there's a tiny chunk. Another thing you can use is sound. If you have like, a little drum or even banging on the desk, if they're in the middle of an activity, there's still 15 minutes left, you're banging really slow saying, we still have some time. In about 5 minutes, we're going to have to get things going to clean up. And then maybe 2 minutes after that, you're starting to bang faster. And then at 1 minute, boop, 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 boop. That's it. It's time to clean up. It's time to get going. And you'll see that they're starting to practice regulating how to get into a new zone, because now they can understand a little bit better what 1 minute is, what 3 minutes is. Having a basket of regulators. So weights, like those soft walking weights and stuff that are Velcroed on, those are great. Headphones, headbands, finger fidgets, blankets, the weighted sock that they can make in class, gum. I'm a big fan of the gum. And then picking it up at the end of the class, right? So everyone spits their gum back out in this little bag and it goes away, but it's such an awesome opportunity for them when they're like stressed about having a test that like, oh, but I get to chew gum, and you actually know that there is some neuroscience behind it, that it's actually doing something or helping bring attention here. Options for a workspace, taping off the areas, bean bags, clipboards. We talked about that. Integrating music during a quiet activity and more upbeat music for transitions. Let's see. And then de-escalating, super important to try to help your kids, for you to learn and help them learn when they're kind of getting into an iffy zone. And maybe these aren't the words that they use. Maybe yellow zone for one kid means super silly. Maybe it means, whiny, getting whiny. Everyone's got a different action in their different zones. So you want to make sure that you list it so that it's really relatable for them. So you're going to want to narrate, and then you'll want to give them a choice, right? Choices, innately, we feel like we have a little bit more control over things. So if they want to do something and that's just not a choice, it's a non-negotiable, give them something. You can come up with 2 choices to come from, to make, to one thing to choose from an option of 2. So at least they get a choice in something. So you're kind of putting in their lap a little bit of a sense of control when they're starting to feel out of control. And then it's really important that we be the anchor. I think about like a balloon taking off, and it's like we're the ones that kind of have to be like, so exaggerating your breath and speaking very slowly, using few words. This is not the time to rationalize and explain and use a lot of language. You want them to co-regulate with you. So you want to bring them into your vibe. You might have to start a little higher and then kind of get them to emulate, to come down. And maybe present them with things that they might need, or move them from environment if they're not in the state to be able to make those decisions themselves. Oops. And then brain breaks, and those can be anything, right? So we talked about carrying the copy paper to the office, a heavy backpack. Hey, can you help me take this to the room next door and push the desk across? Games like Simon Says, red light, green light, and freeze dance. Anything that's stop and go fast. So if I'm running and I'm like, slam on the brakes, you got to stop. All of my muscles have to turn on to get that to happen. Otherwise, it's like a slow stop. But you want to bombard the joints. Remember those proprioceptors that kind of like dampen and bring you down. So anything that's stop and go, freeze dance, red light, green light. And activities that emphasize unity and cohesion. This is very primitive within us. It's our desire to be part of something, part of a bigger thing. So if, I don't know, sometimes they have like those projects and you can make a drum, or you can use a stick on your desk or whatever it is. And maybe it takes 2 minutes to get a rhythm in sync. But once they start getting used to that activity, it starts happening faster, and you can use it getting in line. You can have one kid start a beat while he's sitting in his chair and everyone's just kind of listening and trying to get the whole group to synchronize together. So that's a really good one. That, again, all of these, the first time you present it might be like, oh, this is not working. It takes a minute because it's new and they're kind of like, oh, you're giving me this is a toy, I'm just gonna, play and use it. But I promise you, when you stick with it, it actually does, it does help with soothing and with getting your nervous system organized. And then self-compassion. Let your kids see that you make mistakes and talk about it. Talk about when you're having a rough day, when you've gotten upset, but what you did and how you got back into your zone, with whatever strategies you're using. Let them see that these options are powerful and that everyone needs something different sometimes to change zones, and that's okay. And I think when you see that you can be successful in helping them achieve certain zones and they can be successful, then they've bought into it. And you have these fidget tools and you have this ability to narrate with them and for them. And then you start seeing, you start sensing like, oh, he's more mature now. He's figuring things out. And at the end of the day, that's what we need to be able to do in order to learn, in order to constantly get new tasks that we have to learn and analyze and figure out how to think without getting frustrated and then coming back when we do get frustrated. So that's all I have for you. I don't know if anyone has any questions or if there's anything I didn't touch on that you were wanting to know about.
I just want to tell you without blubbering, how grateful I am for this workshop. Thank you, Lang and Gabby. And I am currently, my grandson is dealing with some of these very issues. And so he is able to see an occupational therapist and be in a smaller classroom. I think part of those things, especially, is important for him until he's finally able to maybe join a regular classroom. Right now, he's not. He would be in first grade next school year. So he still has a little bit of time to, develop these skills when he gets ready for first grade. So, yeah, and he's working on it right now. We're all just kind of, just kind of, his mom calls me, his dad calls me, they're like, well, he's doing really great today. Because there was a time when he was like saying bad words to his mother, and she would call me so upset. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry, I don't know. And, I grew up differently, like you said. So when a child did that, it was like, oh, you are in trouble. But now it's understanding the reasons behind some of the behaviors that we always. I mean, I would speak for myself. There's times when I had overlooked that and saw the behavior itself and just, made rash decisions about how to discipline the child, but understanding how to, understand the behaviors is a whole different thing. And so I have, over the years, I've learned that, especially in my work as a direct support person. But it hits home when it's your grandbaby. It hits home when it's a child that is in your life and you see these things, and it's like, I'm thankful that he is where he can have these resources. But it is just as hard to accept that this is what you have to do until you just finally accept it, and then you find this information and you understand all of these things that are going on with the child. It could be any child, and I see it in many children. It's harder in a bigger classroom, but in a smaller setting you can kind of focus on those tasks for everyone else, and then spend more time with the ones who need that extra sensory, whatever, stimulation or, de-escalation. So thank you. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. And you also touched on a point. You mentioned like the behavior piece, and kids, especially that have a hard time with this, they are actually grateful when those 4 walls are spelled out for them of what the expectation, this is okay, this is not okay. This is where the boundary is on this side, this side, this side, this side. When they get that clearly, and maybe they test it a couple times, but there's a consistency and maintaining it, it's almost like there's this decompression that happens in and of itself, because now I know where I can navigate. Before it was like, I'm going to keep going this way because I feel like it, but there was no reason to stop. It wasn't an uncommon, sorry, as something that a line you can't cross. So again, it's like when you get to that yellow zone and you start feeling like you can understand what yellow means for that kid, you start by offering them stuff and helping them figure out how to bring it back down. But that's great, because this can all be utilized at home too.
Mhm.
It's at school, but at home as well with your family. So
I think it was great.
Oh, sorry. I had a
No,
real
you
quick.
go.
I know that sometimes we focus more on those students that are acting out, that are just really behavior wise. But what if we have a student that's on the other spectrum where they're maybe very low, maybe they're very emotional? These same techniques can work for a student like that?
So this is interesting. If they're low, they're likely not going to be very emotional. If they're very emotional, their body is shut down a little bit. You're not seeing the fight or flight, but they're emotional. And so they would benefit from the calming strategies as well. You might, if you were telling me that this is just a kiddo who maybe is a little bit of a drooler because the muscle tone's not all there and they're kind of, just, you can't get them attending. The first thing you do with any kid is their body battery, right? Like, have they eaten? Is the nutrition factor there? Have they slept? And have they moved? They haven't moved, that's also going to impact. But I would say, especially for the ones that are emotional, I would use that system of calming, because if you're emotional, you're at a threshold of something. So maybe bringing that down where they're not so emotional, or actually that would be your cue, right? That they've come down, is that they're not so emotional. I would use the dampening the activities to help bring them down a little bit more.
I know there's not very many students like that, but every now and then we'll get those students that just seem more, you almost think that they're depressed or they're just get very emotional anytime you tell them anything. Well, and maybe it has to do also with movement, like you mentioned, like if they're not getting enough movement, that can be causing that. Watch that kiddo when he goes to the playground. What does he or she do? What do they gravitate towards? That's we know what we need. Just like Kai, the picture on the swing, he knew what he needed without knowing, like, I'm gonna go feed my vestibulars. Like, it's just something we do. If I'm biting my nails, I'm either trying to stay focused and attending, or I'm anxious and my body inside can't handle it, so I need to do something. You watch what they're kind of gravitating towards. Maybe this child's lying on the floor, but maybe he's squeezing something. Maybe he's wanting something over his, shoulders. See what happens when you offer certain things, and if they, if they, jive with it, if they like it, and then if they do, then it's kind of like putting together a little bit of a puzzle, like trying to see where it goes without necessarily asking them. You can kind of see the output in their face, or their ability to sit for a longer period. It's kind of a little bit of detective work, right? Yeah, sounds good though. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Natasha. I think you gave such good suggestions, and also the reality of it not always being easy in the beginning, but then in the long run being so productive. It's like a toolbox. Every kid's, gotta figure out what works for them, and you as a teacher have to figure out how to help them.
Yeah, and building in some cushion time of, okay, I'm going to introduce these things. And you do a lot of that in your classroom.
Yeah.
Introducing these items where you're like, we're going to pass this. And, even in a morning circle, bringing up, oh my gosh, I had the hardest morning, or, I had the best morning. I'm so in my green zone today because this happened and this happened. And then I had a good night's sleep, or whatever you're going to bring out. And maybe having a couple of kids talk about what they did, and it becomes more of a project and more of like a normalized kind of, this is what we do to get ourselves ready for what we need to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
Well,
Any other questions or anything? We're good.
it was wonderful.
Oh, I have no questions. Thank you so much. I'm so grateful.
You're so welcome.
Thanks, Natasha. Next time you come live and you're be with us in real life and
I will. And something, if you guys think of some topics or some things maybe that I touched on that you wish you would have heard more of or anything like that, I'd totally appreciate an email and kind of, talk to you, Lang, about that.
yeah. And do we
Yeah,
have
to be
everybody's
more
email?
comprehensive. What's that?
Do we have all the emails of everyone here? Gabby, there's a few guests that I would love, put your emails in the chat if you're not from EEO, so we can contact you and give you Natasha's contact information as well. Because the same questions that we have, I'm sure somebody else has, and the more we share ideas and what works and doesn't work. Yeah.
Perfect. Looking forward to it. It was so nice to meet you all.
Yeah, you too. I mean, not you too. Nice to see you, Natasha. Thank
I
you.
can say you too. Thank you so much, Natasha.
You're welcome. Okay, you all have a
I
great
have
day.
to keep my screen kind of shut off because I've been blowing my nose the whole time too. And yeah,
I hope you
so
feel better.
thank you. I do. Thank you.
All right.
Have a great evening, everyone.
Bye.
Ah, look, I can get a picture of everybody.
Okay. Oh,
Good.
thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye,
Bye.
Marie.
Bye,
Okay.
everybody.
We got one email, but I don't know who some of,
That's Jacqueline Roberts from
Yes.
the Green School.
oh,
Yes.
good,
Yes.
hi.
That's me.
Oh,
Hi,
I'm so glad you came. Good.
me too. I am glad to. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Thank you, Roberts. Nice to see you.
Hi, Gabby.
All right. We'll
Okay,
catch up.
bye-bye,
Bye,
everybody.
everybody. Bye-bye.